Coming up on today's show, we have an interesting update on the Eagles defensive coordinator search. And speaking of DC, the Philadelphia Eagles offered Jonathan Gannon more money to stay with them than the Arizona Cardinals offered him to become their next head coach. Is C.J. Gardner-Johnson definitely returning to the Eagles in free agency? And A.J. Brown said, Howie Roseman, the pressure is on you. If you don't pay Jalen Hurts, then trade me. He said it in somewhat of a joking manner, but we're exploring all of that on today's show. First, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're closing in on 42,000 subs, and we have you covered every step of the way during this pivotal Eagles offseason with daily shows coming your way, so lock us in and subscribe right now. We begin with the Eagles defensive coordinator search, and I actually really like what they're doing right now in their outside-of-the-box thinking and trying to replace Jonathan Gannon. And a couple of interesting names are certainly coming to the forefront, and I like how Philadelphia not only looking inside of their organization to replace Jonathan Gannon. So we start with this from Jeremy Fowler, that the Eagles have interviewed former Wisconsin Badgers defensive coordinator Jim Leonhard as they look to fill their DC job per league sources. Leonhard was a 10-year NFL safety who was respected in league circles, and he's been respected in league circles over the last couple of years, and really a lot of teams have shown a lot of interest in him in bringing him in as one of the next upcoming defensive minds in the National Football League. Now, he was Wisconsin's defensive coordinator and interim head coach after Paul Chryst got fired, played in the league for a decade, 142 games total to go along with 73 starts, and does have some familiarity with this Eagles team and this Eagles defense. He did coach TJ Edwards at Wisconsin, but TJ Edwards expected to be a free agent, so if Leonhard were to come here, Edwards gets paid somewhere else to play linebacker, then obviously they would not have a reunion. And for me, when I look at what the Eagles are doing here, a little outside of the box thinking, but I actually happen to really like it. And I do think that it's advantageous and beneficial to have a wide-ranging search for the next defensive coordinator. And speaking of that, a couple of other outside-of-the-box names coming up here during this process for Philadelphia. Mike Garafolo saying, among the Eagles defensive coordinator interviews to date, Rams defensive backs coach and pass game coordinator Chris Shula, and Michigan defensive coordinator Jesse Minter. Shula and Nick Sirianni were together on the Chargers coaching staff in 2015 and 2016. And as for Jesse Minter, I like this as well. Has some NFL experience, was with the Baltimore Ravens, and this past year, despite losing multiple players in the first round of the NFL draft, led by Aiden Hutchinson, this Michigan defense actually got better en route to the college football playoff. Minter coordinated one of the top defenses in the country last year. Eagles are scanning both the NFL and the college ranks with both him and Jim Leonhard, so I'm very fascinated to see what happens on this front. Now, the offseason is officially here for the Eagles, and they have a lot of important decisions to make in NFL free agency. 11 combined starters expected to hit the open market, and of course, 2 picks in the first round at number 10 and number 30. So if you're pumped up to see what Howie Roseman and the Birds do, give me a Go Birds in the comment section right now. To Jonathan Gannon now. As we previewed off the top of the show, the Eagles wanted him to stay. And oddly enough, they offered him more money to be the defensive coordinator than the hapless Arizona Cardinals did to become their next head coach. Jonathan Gannon said this at his introductory press conference in the desert. The Eagles came back and they were like, here's a new offer. It's going to pay you more than being a head coach. That's cool, and I loved it there, but I wanted to be a head coach. And I think it's best for the Eagles and Gannon to part ways, and good for him to get that head coaching opportunity. And I do not blame him for going to Arizona as compared to Philadelphia, even though in Philly he was going to make more money if he took that new offer. Anybody out there would want to become a head coach over a defensive coordinator, because that opportunity is the one that you've been seeking out, that you've been building toward throughout your coaching career. And think about it from a regular corporate America standpoint, right? If you were offered a job with a new title, that would open up some pathways for you in your individual career, and in the meantime, you might not get paid as much. You're probably going to take that job because of what it could lead to down the road. And Jonathan Gannon, in that aforementioned introductory press conference with Arizona, did finally take blame for the Super Bowl loss against the Kansas City Chiefs and said, I didn't have my guys ready to play and we weren't prepared individually, especially with what the Kansas City Chiefs were going to do offensively. Our players were prepared, but Jonathan Gannon basically admitted, I was not prepared, didn't put them in a good enough position, didn't do a good enough job myself, and I didn't do a good enough job to get out of the call what I wanted out of the call. Speaking of the Sky Moore touchdown and the Kadarius Toney touchdown, I didn't give them the tools that they needed to win that down. On that second touchdown to Kadarius Toney, I thought Mahomes was going to play that as a drop back, and that coverage was a zero blitz. Jesus Christ wouldn't have covered that in a zero. So good for Jonathan Gannon for taking blame, but that does not make this loss any easier because I want to still throw up, and we're a little past the week mark of the Eagles losing that game to the Chiefs, and I'm still not over it. I never will get over it because, my goodness, that was a kick in the balls. Now, let me ask you this, and I want you to be honest with me down in the comment section. Will the Eagles actually miss Jonathan Gannon? Like, will their defense really suffer from him leaving and departing for Arizona? Give me a Y for yes or an N for no. A lot to get to still on the show. First, though, Philadelphia Eagles Now is sponsored by Cultivate, a brand new sponsor who we're really excited to partner with. What is Cultivate? A free browser extension bringing transparency to consumers as they shop on Amazon. Cultivate shows you the brand, seller, product origin while showing them cheaper prices on the same or similar products. Cultivate identifies local alternatives that can be picked up same day or shipped to you and support local community efforts, local workers, local brick and mortar stores while getting cheaper prices and keeping money in the U.S. economy by supporting tax-paying businesses, creating jobs here in the States. It's free to download and use. Users never pay anything to Cultivate, so you may as well download it if you want to support the U.S. economy. Don't get tricked either by sellers in China while shopping on Amazon, because sometimes it can get a little bit sketchy because you don't know where those products are coming from. More than 50% of Amazon U.S. sellers are based in China, and they don't pay taxes or create jobs in the United States. Even if a product is Chinese, buying from a U.S. seller at least keeps money right here in the economy. Cultivate alternatives are 30% less expensive on average, and Amazon Prime costs an additional $15 a month, whereas Cultivate absolutely free. You can also find products to pick up same day locally or support your local area. So Cultivate users earn free donations as rewards for using Cultivate, and the more you use it, the more you earn in donations by increasing your level all the way to us, donating 51% of the revenue we make on your purchase, truly making you a bigger partner of the community than Cultivate. So make sure you go to wecultivate.us/chatsports. Download Cultivate for free. We're going to put that link in the comment section. We're going to put it in the description so that you can start saving money on your Amazon purchases today. As for CJ Gardner-Johnson, is he definitively returning? Is it going to happen for sure? Well, longtime NFL insider Adam Kaplan, who's always had a great pulse on the Eagles, said CJ Gardner-Johnson, folks, quote, is not going anywhere. The Eagles are expected to use the franchise tag if they can't strike a long-term deal. And what's interesting is that there's a difference in between the price tags of the franchise tags between cornerbacks and safeties. And for Philly, probably going to save a little bit more money if they franchise tag him as a safety, and that works in their advantage because he primarily played there all throughout this year. The cornerback franchise tag, $18.14 million. The safety tag, $14.6. And if you did miss, our interview with CJ Gardner-Johnson from Super Bowl week, I had asked him first if you wanted to hit the market as a corner or a safety. He said, I'm worried about the Super Bowl market at that time. But then I asked him if he wants to come back to the Eagles in free agency. And he said, quote, who wouldn't want to come here? It's a great spot, great place. I love it here. And it looks as though that feeling is mutual. Why the Eagles should bring back CJ Gardner-Johnson? A plethora of reasons here. And I'd like to see him become a building block for this Eagles defense moving forward. And he can do that and be that because he's only 25 years old. And I love the experience that he has has at slot corner, nickel corner, as well as playing that safety spot. And for the next Eagles defensive coordinator, whoever it is, internal hire like Denard Wilson, somebody externally, by the way, Vance Joseph going to interview this week as well. It's paramount. It's really important for the next Eagles defensive coordinator to use him in a variety of ways to really tap into his potential and tap into what he does well. But also in today's NFL offensive era, I think it's really important to have a guy like this. He has that swagger and confidence that is peak Philadelphia, which means he's a great fit with this organization and among this fan base. I love that versatility where he can play multiple areas on the field and do it well and flourish doing so. 6 interceptions this year in 12 games. That tied for the most in the NFL despite missing a lot of time. Nick Sirianni seems to really like him. He said that toward the tail end of the year. Said, I love this guy's competitiveness. He talks shit to me during practice. I love that, and he's a young building block for this Eagles defense that does have some question marks moving forward because of all of the marquee players who were set to hit the free agency market. Interesting note about the franchise tag, Eagles don't do it often because Howie Roseman is a financial genius, and he's too good of a general manager and too good on the books to really use the franchise tag. The last time that they leveraged that, all the way back in 2012 when they used it on Deshaun Jackson. Before we get to A.J. Brown saying, trade me, Howie, if you don't sign Jalen Hurts to a contract extension. If you want to interact with me all throughout this offseason and during the season on Twitter and Instagram, you can find me right here at Chase_Senior on Twitter, at Chase_Senior on Instagram. Love hearing from the Bird Gang. As for these Jalen Hurts contract extension talks, according to a report out of the Boston Globe, a deal could get done before the NFL Scouting Combine. This coming from Ben Volin. He said, Hurts and the Eagles declined to talk about a contract extension following the Super Bowl loss, but don't be surprised if he has a new deal before the Combine starts in a week and a half. Prior to the Super Bowl, the Eagles had already approached veterans about redoing deals to make space for Hurts, and that makes a lot of sense. Jason Kelce over the weekend, this news kind of fell under the radar. We're not sure if he's going to come back or not, but the Eagles did give him kind of a bonus up front to maybe free up some money later on, and maybe some of that money could go toward a Jalen Hurts contract extension, and a couple of contract restructures could happen as well. As for the A.J. Brown component of this, he said he wants Jalen Hurts to get paid. He's deserving of getting the bag, and he said if the Eagles don't extend Hurts, just trade me to wherever Jalen Hurts goes. And the Hurts and Brown pairing, it really did work magic from game one against the Detroit Lions, in which A.J. Brown went off against Detroit, all the way until the Super Bowl. I mean, that 1-2 punch and that connection really was magical. And keep in mind that A.J. Brown was, of course, joking when he said this. But look, he has a fair point. Hurts deserves to get paid with how he played all throughout this year, finishing runner-up in MVP voting behind Patrick Mahomes and arguably outplaying Patrick Mahomes in Super Bowl 57. I wish he didn't give up that touchdown to Kansas City with that fumble that got returned by Nick Bolton. Otherwise, we would have had a parade last week. But either way, great growth from Hurts, and A.J. Brown saw it because he reaped the dividends of it and reaped the benefits of it after having a career year for him. If you do not pay this man, A.J. Brown said, just ship me off wherever he finna go. Howie, get it done. Howie knows that the pressure is there. Howie knows that the players respect and admire Jalen Hurts, and Hurts, as I've talked about here on the show, is worth that price tag and is a guy who you feel comfortable in making an investment in because of his leadership qualities and him being the face of this franchise. So can Hurts lead the Eagles to a Super Bowl? He led them to a Super Bowl. Can he do it again? W for win, L for lose. And if you're still rocking with us on today's show, we appreciate all of your support. Type real one. I'm going to give you some hearts down in the comment section below. Appreciate all of you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe because this is your one-stop shop for all things Eagles all throughout the offseason.